Welcome back to the channel, guys. We have a new video today. This is going to be a more in-depth video, not a clip of some type of build, and I will go into detail about these builds that I'm going to be showcasing. Now, Sevagoth Prime just came out a few days ago, I think last Wednesday, and we decided to farm him, and also I got Nautilus Prime. As you can see, he's floating around me. I did not get Epitaph Prime, but that's still progress. Mind me, I am sick a bit, so if I do end up coughing or like sneezing or anything like that, uh, just know that I'm a bit sick, feeling a bit sick. All right, so we have three different builds. I'll try to go as quickly as possible into detail about the builds, but first thing is his abilities. No, Sevagoth is one of those frames where when he launched in Call of the Tempestari, he wasn't that actually good. His usual ability, wait, actually, let's ignore the Resonator. Let's quickly, don't look at the builds. Okay, let's quickly go over the abilities. Now, like I said, this frame wasn't as good when he first came out because his first and second were sort of decent, but only for level 60, level 70 enemies. They weren't the best uh, in general. And Gloom, Gloom is one of the most subsumed abilities, right? And people use it on a lot of builds like Garuda, Saren, a lot of these frames that really benefit from the slow and the lifesteal. Now, the first ability, Sevagoth casts a shadow, and basically the shadow just goes through enemies, and it does deal damage while it goes through enemies. Now, ignore the Shadow Haze augment. I'm going to explain that later. The Sow ability is basically an AoE seed planting ability where it's like the enemies around you get planted with like a certain debuff, and basically this debuff, when you kill the enemies that are debuffed, it fills up your meter, which is as you can see in the showcase. Now this meter is important because this allows you to go into the fourth ability. Right, the fourth ability is pretty. Now the Gloom ability, everyone knows this. Just circle around you, souls enemies that are incoming, and lifesteal from the enemies, right? And it also increases your range by time. Now, Exalted Shadow. This is the fourth ability, basically another whole entire different frame. Basically, we go into his abilities. He has three abilities. The fourth one just being the reuniting, basically going into Shadow again, going into, I mean, Sevagoth again. First one just pulls enemies with his hands. Second one, Consume. This is a very important ability. I'll explain why later. But basically, when you go down to Sevagoth, you actually don't die. You go into like his like an Inaro's tomb kind of thing, and you go into his shadow. And the way you revive yourself is by getting consume kills. And consume is that one ability where if you hit any enemy, it dies. Just consume them. Now the third ability is basically reap or sorry, sow, but just on his um, shadow. It's a debuff. It gives damage vulnerability, scales with strength, of course. But also, thing about Seven Bell Shadow is that he has a separate modding. He doesn't. It's not like an exalted weapon, or it's not like some type of thing like it's basically like Venari, but just for a Warframe, right? Now the claws are the exalted weapon for the shadow only, and that's it. So Sevagoth is a high investment frame. That's the problem with him. I feel like Sevagoth, when he first came out, was one of the highest investment frames, and probably still the highest investment frames till now, even when his prime came out. Now, I did go overkill on the Shadow, but we'll get to that later. Let's just go into the most important build, which is um, the nuking build. Now, when Sevagoth, when these two augments came out, more like Dark Propagation, or actually more like Shadow Haze, when this came out, this was insanely good. Why? Let's ask why. Well, it gives critical chance per enemies that are like it gives critical chance on the enemies that are hit by Reap. That's the first thing. The second thing is that it multiplies, or not multiplies, but it increases your shadows that you launch by 3 when the enemies are killed. So let's say there's a group of enemies, you launch the shadows into them, some of them get killed. Basically, the one shadow becomes 3 shadows. And then and those 3 shadows basically find enemies and go tracking for enemies that are debuffed by so. Now, this is the most important part. How do you play this Warframe? You press so around a group of enemies. You want to prime or use a primer like Epitaph, and then you cast your first. That's how you nuke. And whoever doesn't get nuked, you have 90% flat critical chance on the debuffed enemies from Sow and Reap. And yeah, now this is a nuking build, but I also like to include stripping. Now, why did I get rid of his shadow? Is because his shadow's okay, but it's not like the best for endgame level content. This nukes, this scales very well. This is what I'll just say. And yeah. No, let's actually explain the mods. Corrosive projection, very good. Always the better option. I'd say brief respite is a bit too overkill because we are running a shield gating type of build. Prime sure footed makes a lot of sense, but you actually don't need this if you run a certain setup with your epitaph, which I'll go to later, of course. Prime redirection because this is a shield gaining build. So what we're gonna do, we have augur reach, which the augur set mod gives you 40% energy spent on abilities is converted to shields. This is very important for us because you're going to be spamming these two enemies, and you have pillage, and pillage is going to give you around 2.2k shield, which is very good. And yeah, let's explain Shadow Haze. We already explained it. Now let's explain Dark Propagation. Dark Propagation is very important because when you kill the enemies that you reap with the shadows, they spread the debuff effect on other enemies within a 15-meter radius. Of course, this 15 is not flat, and it scales. As you can see, Dark Propagation on So is 26.25 meters. Now, range is very important. That's one thing. You don't need to go overkill on range. That's why I only put these two. And then efficiency is also very important because you're going to be spamming a lot. Equilibrium is used instead of, like, let's say flow and energize, and it's very important to use that. Some strength, of course, for the armor strip and bloom, and of course the nuking damage, and some efficiency with fleet expertise. Now, molt efficiency allows us when we do have like our overshields up or shields up, anyways, we're going to be getting around 36% duration plus 85. That's around 110, 100, sorry, 111 duration, which is very good for our first and second because our reap can pretty much go for even further. Molt augmented, very self-explanatory. We just want more strength. Plus, we want to reach to a armor stripping point when we get the 250 kills. And that's the nuking build. I'll go over the other builds later, but let's actually explain Epitaph. Now, I don't have Epitaph Prime. I do have a ribbon, but actually this is not really needed. You could put um, you could put a lot of things inside of this. You could put something like accelerated isotope. You could put uh, definitely not Cardinal Stinger. That is a foul type of mod to put on. You could definitely put on Fulmination. I don't have Prime Fulmination actually leveled up, but I'd say that this is very important. This is actually a very important mod. I still need to level it up, and I'd say that instead of this ribbon, you should put this. That's just me, though, of course. And basically, it's just a normal priming type of build. But the most important part is secondary fortifier. When you go into missions and there's Eximus units, this is the most important arcane ever because the overguard gating mechanic allows you to get a 0.5-second invulnerability stage between you breaking your overguard and going back to shields or going back to health, which is very good because, as you know, shields have been kind of changed. The more shields you have, the more duration you have being invulnerable on shield break. Now, imagine this 2.4 seconds goes up to, let's say, double because we're going over shield, right? So if you get nuked, you're going to have like around 4 seconds of invulnerability. Invulnerability. So this is very important. The epitaph build is very important. I think secondary fortifier is a key integral part, but if you don't have secondary fortifier, then just go Cascadia Flare. Cascadia Flare is also very good because the damage percentage on it that stacks up is for every weapon, everything basically. Praetos is just for parkour velocity. I just like having parkour velocity. I like being fast. That's just me. And actually, I forgot to mention, we also have these shards. Now, these shards are not really self-explanatory. I like using Energy Max because I'm not using Flow, and I like using Duration because first of all, I don't need more strength than I need because I have around 270 when I get 250 kills because of Molt Augmented, and I need Duration, so my Reap and Sow kind of last for a while, and yeah, and Pillage as well. It's already scaling by range, so it doesn't matter. All right, let's go to Sevagoth's Shadow. This is a very overkill build. I only use Sevagoth's Shadow for the second build, which is basically a Sevagoth Shadow type of build. It's not really made for Sevagoth himself. It's just no helmets at all. So when you have no helmets, I think that this is a very good build. This is very overkill. I do not suggest you to do this. I just had a ton. I just had like 4 Umbral Formas laying around, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna put these. Please don't do this. Please don't do this. This is overkill. If you have the materials for it, go ahead. If you want to like waste your Umbral Formas, go ahead. But there is some deep regret putting on these 2 Umbral Formas. So yeah, preparation is very important because when you die, you go into his shadow form, right? Or you go down, of course. Go into shadow form, and you want full energy so you can get your consume kills as fast as possible. Adaptation is very self-explanatory. Prime flow is very self-explanatory. Arcane battery is very important in my opinion because you have Arcane Guardian. Once you get this proc, your energy is gonna skyrocket. You already have 951. You're gonna skyrocket in energy. So yeah, and yeah, you have a lot of range for your consume and your first. And yeah, that's basically it. Very, very simple to build. Now let's go to the Shadow Claws. This is a very, very generic build. Corrosive crit build. If you don't want to run Corrosive, you can run Viral, right? This is a very important mod, in my opinion. Prime Fever Strike is one of the most important mods ever. If you ever like find this at Barketeer, or if you want to even buy it, please, please do so because this is a very, very big difference from the normal Fever Strike. This is a 115% difference, which is crazy. Quickening because I don't have Prime Fury maxed out, and these stats are very good. These stats are super good. Sorry for coughing a lot. But yeah, that's basically the build I'll show. Now, Galaxian is not important. I'll show it later though. Let's spawn some enemies. Camp. We can actually not pause the AI. We cast Gloom, and we do our second. Now you could do prime them with Epitaph. I'll press 1, and that's it. Now, of course, for these types of people, you want to cast second again. You're not dying, of course, but as you can see, the build is very good. Let's actually try it out without them moving, because I feel like that's a bit of annoying. It's a bit annoying. Now I have Nautilus uh, doing the Cordon ability. We're going to do Reap, which is the second. It's going to be on everyone. And then your first. That's basically the sequence. You already have Gloom on. You're slowing them down. You want a Haven, or you want to, sorry, Pillage. And second, wait for the second to spread for just like 1 second. And then 1. That's it. Now, I forgot to show Nautilus, because Nautilus is a very integral part of this build. Of course, we're using the Sevagoth Prime, one of the best weapons ever. This weapon got super buffed, and the ribbons probably cost like around 600 platinum. Trash ribbons cost about 600 platinum, which is crazy. Now, this is a very, very generic build. I use this build even on the Warframe Prime with Sevagoth Prime. I think Warframe is very good. His abilities are nice. Um, We have Duplex Bond, Contagious Bond, and Manifold. These three are super good. Now, the most important part that we're going to go to, the Vergless Prime, is Shiver and Contagion. But before that, this is a very generic build. Assault mode is very important, so it can pull in enemies and shoot them as quickly as possible for 30 meters. Cordon as well. Cordon's cooldown is actually very short. It's 15 seconds. 15 seconds is nothing. Prime Regen, Prime Animal Instinct, Seismic Bond. This is very important for Gloom. You don't really want Gloom to really eat your efficiency because it actually eats a lot of your efficiency. So I suggest this over like Tenacious Bond or like some type of it depends. This is removable, but in my opinion, I feel like using Seismic Bond is just way better. This is also a type of shield gating type of build. Boosts owner's shield by 100% when it runs out. This is very important. We actually saw it in the showcase. And then shield recharge. Now to the Reckless Prime. This is a very long video, guys, but bear with me. I am a bit sick. Now, this build is mainly just you spreading as much status effects as possible. You have cold, gas, and radiation. Now, I'd say why not run something like corrosive cold? Well, the thing is with corrosive is that I'd say that corrosive is only good when you're running like green shards on Sevagoth, which is totally fine. Now, the gas build is made for uh, with reap and sow, so the status effects can spread even more, right? Because when you're shooting gas, it spreads and makes it gas cloud, right? And cold is very important because it increases critical damage. And this rework is probably one of the best status reworks just ever. Shiver and Contagion, as we said, this mod actually got secretly buffed, but they didn't improve they didn't implement it in any patch notes or hotfixes or anything. It just got buffed. Very important mod by the way. Hammer shot for status chance. We don't really care about critical damage. The 60-60 dual stat mods, radiated reload, very important. Reload speed doesn't even matter. It's 1.1 seconds, which is not bad at all. And Vile Acceleration Speecher, these are very important as well. 60 plus 90 is 150 fire rate. Very important. Okay. And yeah, that's basically the build for Sevagoth, right? Now, I'd say that we do have Shadow build, right? This is a very, actually, we'll showcase this build. It's really made for you having fun. I don't think that this build is made for you going into endgame content. Now, I'd say cast Reap, and then go, and then of course you have to actually build your. You can still actually like nuke them with this build, and it's actually very easy to nuke. And I don't know why, but there's actually an ongoing bug where the uh, the shadow is not shown. Now let's cast this. Let's go into the second form, the shadow form. As you can see, the damage is actually not bad at all. Damage is not bad whatsoever. I think the damage is very good. We actually nuked them that time. Let's spawn them again. See how this works. Go into this. It is red critting, which is very nice. And plus the cold, the 10 stacks of cold coming from Vergless, it's just very good. Consume is a bit of a iffy ability when you're actually playing with the shadow like normally. I don't suggest you use Consume unless you want to like close the gap like this, for example. And that's it. That's the only way you're probably gonna play with Consume. But his first are very important as a shadow. And that's it. Let's actually showcase the last build, which is very important. Resonator build. This is the same exact build as the nuke strip, but I felt like Resonator is very good because of the damage per charm, and the damage per charm actually makes a lot of difference. This is of course, a shield gating build, but the Resonator build is very, very important. This is not really a main build. I need to still play test with this. And Arcane Energize is used instead of Arcane Efficiency. Or, sorry, Molt Efficiency. Now, let's spawn these guys unpaused because, you know, let's put down the Resonator, cast a second, prime them, and that's it. Now, you're going to be saying, like, well, you know, this is kind of a meh build because you're not armor stripping them. You're not doing a lot of things to them. You're just priming them. You're just charming them. But I think the charm on Resonator is actually super good. Like, look at this nuke. This is crazy. This is genuinely nuts. And then you also have Duplex Bond. All of these three Nautiluses just cast like shooting Varus Prime and making them frozen. It's unbeatable. This is literally an unbeatable nuke build. And these guys can't even move. Like, look at this. They're all already frozen. This is just like bonkers. But the investment is crazy now. Like, I'm not saying that you can't do this on a low investment type of um, deal. Like, you can do this 100% on like a lower investment. Like this Sevagoth has three formas. Uh, his shadow has two umbral formas and then two normal formas, right? And his claws has three formas. So that's in total six formas. So two, sorry, three, and then two normal here. So that's five, and then that's eight formas. And then two formas, two umbral formas. So two normal formas and two umbral formas on this whole setup, right? Of course, excluding Epitaph and Praetos and all that. That's a lot of investment. And I also forgot to show the Glaxian. So let's look at that. This is a very normal Glaxian build, right? Now, I'll actually show you what you're supposed to do with Glaxian. For example, well, actually, let's reset because I don't want energy. Oh, well, let me spam these abilities real quickly. All right. No, let's actually do this. Glaxian is made for a lot of things. Now, if you want to get energy with Photon Overcharge, right? You're gonna basically just shoot the enemies. So you see the orange crits are very prominent. Let's actually do that again. I want to shoot these guys for energy orbs, and I'll get them, right? Of course, this is not really the best showcase, but I'll showcase in this in a video, in another video, in a mission, and actually, let's just nuke these guys. And yeah, the Photon Overcharge is just used for you getting energy, and plus you have Equilibrium on, so that's very important. Now, I don't know if I should do this in this video, but should I go into I'm asking y'all, should I go into a survival mission and seeing what this build is capable of? Of course, I've gone into around 10 survival missions, like long ones, with this build, and it's very effective. It doesn't fall off. The nuking is still consistent as long as there's enemies. Now, this is the problem with Sevagoth, is that this is what makes him an A tier frame and not an S tier frame. Is that first of all, he has a high investment. Second of all, if you don't find enemies with your Reap and Sow combo, then the nuke is gonna like be terrible. You're not gonna nuke at all. That's the problem. So you need to find a group of enemies, and then Reap and then Sow. Like, look at this. Let me show you actually. Like, let's spawn a few enemies, right? Like, let's say these enemies. Of course, these are 11 enemies, right? Like, it's because of the range, but if they were split apart, the nuke wouldn't have been that good, right? So this is the problem with Sevagoth, is that you need to find a room of enemies so you could actually nuke people. That's the only disadvantage I can think of, the real gameplay disadvantage. Other disadvantages are high investment. He's more of a setup frame. He really benefits from the type of companion that you put for him. Um, Survivability. energy making is a bit hard on this build, in my opinion. I think that Glaxian doesn't really do the energy build justice, or the energy type of income justice, because the energy income on this build is not really the best unless you get a health orb. Once you get a health orb, you're actually good, because even with energize, you're gonna just absolutely get full energy straight up. That's why I have energy maximum on this, because you really cannot spam this without energy maximum or prime flow. But equilibrium, I'd say that putting prime flow and equilibrium together are like hand in hand the worst, because you're sacrificing two mod slots just for energy. So yeah, that's all the advantages and disadvantages I think of. And yeah, that's the end of the video. Very long video, guys, I know, but it's a very important build, and I think I've seen a lot of people actually trying to run this build. And playing this build is actually super fun, super easy. The only problem is that he's just high investment. Has a super high investment curve. I can't even stress this enough. It's just like forming this guy is taking way too long, and that's certainly a problem with some people. And yeah, that's basically it for the video. If you guys like this video, please like, subscribe, do whatever you want. Honestly, write all of your feedback for the build. Maybe even try out the build. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.